Our entire job here at the Solar Lab is testing products. Do they work as advertised, and are they worth your money? We test stuff like batteries, inverters, power stations, but we rarely actually test solar panels. And we actually have a pretty good reason for that, which in short is just solar panels don't matter. So welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. If you've ever shopped for solar panels, you've probably noticed that they're sold in tiers. You have like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 solar panel, for example. And for a lot of DIY solar kits, especially from brands like Signature Solar, the brand is less important than the actual tier of the panel. All somewhere like Signature Solar is trying to do is just give you, X amount of solar for the best price possible, to be honest. So they may stock brands like Aptos or Hyundai, Phono, Rich Solar, or Solar Space, and the exact panels from those brands can vary based on shipping constraints or availability or stuff like that. But basically what they're trying to do is how can they get you the most amount of solar for the best price with whatever they have available. Signature Solar's own panel listings show like a rotating list of brands. It's the only thing that's in any of these kits that isn't specific to one item. It just kind of rotates and changes out depending on what they have on hand. They just use marketing language in those listings like tier 1 or bifacial, depending on what you're looking for. And before we jump into it, if this all seems like a lot for you, you just want someone to tell you what it is that you need and you don't want to have to worry about it, we have a really quick quiz in the description down below. It takes less than a minute. It will hook you up with a local installer that can help you out and you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. So solar panels are more standardized than like a battery, inverter, or a transfer switch. A solar panel is basically expected to do one job: sit outside and turn sunlight into usable DC power and last hopefully 25 plus years. There are real differences between different panels and brands, but for the most part, they're all just doing the same thing using the same components. For the most part, they're all just aluminum frames with a piece of back glass, your solar cells, another piece of glass on the front, you got a junction box on the back. There's not a whole lot to them. But when you're shopping for a solar panel, for the most part, you really only care about 6 things. The first one is price per watt. If you had a 450 watt panel for 150 bucks and a 400 watt panel for 189, 9 out of 10 people are gonna go for that 450 for the 150 bucks because it's just a better deal. There's nothing dramatically different between the two. The second thing is gonna be electrical compatibility. You're gonna wanna pay attention to things like the voltage, the current, make sure that those solar panels can be wired in a way where they'll properly communicate and work with your inverter or charge controller's voltage and amperage limits. The third one is going to be panel type. So you're gonna be looking for things like monofacial or bifacial, if it's got a single layer of glass or if it's dual layers of glass. And the fourth thing that kind of ties into that third point really nicely is gonna be the size. And I'm talking like the physical size of the panel. Because while a 450 watt panel might be a really good deal in terms of price per watt, it's also quite big if you're gonna start mounting them on a smaller house's roof, or if you're gonna try to put them in the backyard. You might be better off getting smaller panels that you can kind of maneuver around on the roof a lot easier. The next thing you wanna look for is warranty and bankability. Will that company still exist if you have a problem 12 years from now? General rule of thumb for us is like, if you're buying something from a company that's been around for 2 years, how can you expect them to be around in 12? If they've already been around for 12 years, it's a lot more likely that they're gonna be around in the next 12. And the last thing is just, where are you buying these panels? Same thing, how long have they been around? How are they doing? Are they going to be around in a while? And how are they treating these panels? Because if they're actually educated and a good store that you would use like Signature Solar, they're gonna have all the language in there, some of which you might not understand. They're gonna have a bunch of different panel types. They're gonna have pallets available. They're gonna be able to cater to whatever tier or type of panel you want. They'll probably just treat it like lumber. Do you want builder's grade lumber? Do you want finishing lumber? Like, what is it that you're looking for? And they'll just help you navigate the whole thing. So when you look at the different tiers, tier 1 is kind of like the top of the line panel, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's like the best quality. What actually qualifies something to be a tier 1 panel, the company has to have been around for 5 or more years. They have to own the entire production process of that panel, and they have to be able to prove that they invest in R&D and automated manufacturing to be able to ensure a stable quality on their products. There is no, this batch was good and that batch was bad. And because they're more of a financially stable company, their 25-year warranties are considered more bankable and actually like be able to be honored, which is the whole thing beginning of basically what makes a tier 1 panel tier 1 is the bankability. It's literally just like 2% of solar panel companies are actually in this bracket of companies that banks will want to loan you money for because they trust that they're not going to loan you money that's going to go up in flames in 6 months. That being said, these tier 1 brands are more likely to give you a better quality product. They have the money to invest in the R&D, the automated manufacturing, and actually offer and honor their warranties and have customer support. Tier 2 basically covers like small to medium manufacturers. These companies may use similar practices to tier 1 companies, but they have less brand recognition and they probably haven't been around as long, so they have a shorter track record for banks to look at. They're usually a little bit better bang for your buck. That's how they kind of break into the market. They're a little bit more affordable for the same power as some of these tier 1s, but they do carry a higher risk when you look at the long-term support. Again, if a company just hasn't been around for as long, it's harder to project them to be around in the future. Tier 3 is where it can get a little bit sketchy. These are like no-name solar companies that assemble panels with parts and components from other companies from China. These brands generally do not make their own panels. I mean, they make them, but it's like a DIY science project, which inherently just makes them a little bit more risky, or a lot more risky, because the quality of product can't be insured the same. They don't go through the same quality insurance and like testing that some of these other brands might do. And typically those brands haven't been around for very long. That's kind of like the startup phase of a brand. So you can get a really cheap panel that probably performs well. It's just more of a gamble on if it's gonna last as long as you want it to. And in our experience, if you do have a problem, your customer service is probably going to be very bad. You'll likely just have like a one person in the entire building type of thing, and they'll get back to you whenever. So if you're trying to invest your money wisely, I would steer away from tier 3. And the best news is that different sellers, a store like Signature Solar, all these different sellers use this language differently. So even though I just explained to you generally what these things mean, there's no golden rule on what exactly makes tier 1, and a lot of these stores use language interchangeably kind of. But in practical DIY shopping terms, here's usually what the tiers kind of shake out to be. Usually you have like your budget or value options. These are generally cheapest watt options. They may be overstocked or like older model panels. They're probably coming from a lesser known brand, and they probably have just less impressive specs. Not saying that there's anything wrong with these panels either though. If you're just trying to get like an off-grid cabin up off the ground and you don't mind the risk, these could be really good options. You're also going to see things like a standard tier 1 panel. You'll see things like premium high efficiency panels. These cost more money, but they usually make sense when space is limited. So if you really don't have a lot of room, they're going to be rated for like the highest efficiency, so you can have the least amount of panels, and they might just look a little bit nicer. You might get the black edges with the black panel so it looks good on your roof. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. You're also going to see stuff like bifacial panels. This isn't necessarily like a quality tier, but they do put them in their own category because they're kind of their own thing. So bifacial panel makes sense for someone like us. In our yard, we have a massive ground mount, and in the winter, it's obviously a lot cloudier, but on those sunny days, the sun will bounce off the snow, hit the backside of the panels, and generate us extra power when we really, really need it. Typically, a bifacial panel makes no sense on a roof or on like a very low mount. They're better off if you have like a big ground mount or something like that where you can actually capture that sun. Even if it's just late in the evening as the sun's setting, it's hitting the backside, you're generating a little bit of extra power. So what I would tell you is to not obsess about the panel brand or get hung up on things that don't necessarily matter. If you're shopping from somewhere trusted, like a Signature Solar, you're gonna end up just talking to them, picking a tier that you're comfortable with, whether it's bifacial because you have a big ground mount, or whether you want that tier 1 panel because you're trying to get financed for a project and the financing is gonna be a bit better on that tier 1, and you're just gonna trust the process that those panels that show up are gonna be best suited for your needs. Of course, you can say you really want like a Hyundai solar panel and figure it out, but oftentimes that just creates headache for both you and the place you're buying stuff from. Just trust in the process is probably the best way to get stuff done in this case, and focus on what really matters, which would be more of your battery, your inverter, your ground mount or roof mount. That kind of stuff is way more worth your energy than what brand solar panels you actually get. And so like we said, if this is all way too much for you guys and you're just looking for some sort of quote for someone to come and do this for you, we have a quiz in the description down below that you guys can take. Hooks you up with a local installer. Takes like less than a minute, so go check that out. Otherwise, that's all we got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you in the next one. Peace out and stay charged.